deputies or what? Oh, we got a private concern, MVM security. What? You mean the sheriff is not guarding the courthouse? No. Fairfax County, Virginia, right across the water from D.C. So I called up there, and I said, you got a number for the place? Yeah, we got a number. So I called, and this guy answered, hello, this is Corporal so-and-so. I said, Corporal, where are you from? Afghanistan. I said, what? I said, look, man, I said, do you have an American sergeant in charge? Oh, yeah, if you have an American sergeant, I can get him for you. So I got a hold of this American sergeant. You can tell he's American because I speak 5 languages. And I said, hey, I said, have you got foreigners guarding the courthouse? Yeah. I said, oh, how many of them? 75. Kazakhstanis? Yeah. I said, how much you pay them? I can't tell you. I said, well, where'd you get them? Well, we issued a job announcement, and we hired them. They got hired by MVM. You mean you sent out a job announcement for security guards, and 75 Kazakhstanis showed up? Well, yeah. Do you think it's a security problem? I said, I know it's a security problem. Well, we did background checks on them. I said, you did BI on them? Yeah. I said, look, man, what'd you do? Would you call their mullahs over in Kazakhstan? Did you call their mullahs in Kazakhstan or their imams? See, a background investigation is no good unless you've been here 10 years or more. These guys were exercising dominion over American citizens in Fairfax County, Virginia. So if they start these roadblocks, and they're planning, because Greg Evanson, the state trooper, said, we just read that story, and this guy Evanson's a sharp dude, and he's a true Christian. He really is. And he laid it out. I listened to him for 2 hours out there. In 2006, I was invited to go to Omaha. And when I got out there, they didn't have a place to put me when they brought me, but they got a dear pastor out there, a dear black brother, to let us use his little church. So I was there for 3 nights, and I had 15 hours worth of instruction. And my buddy Bob had told me, he said, listen, if you say Holocaust 2 is beginning, people will get up and leave. Some of the guys are going to get up and leave that place. And sure enough, I said, hey, folks, before I start, written my little message, I said, Holocaust 2 is going to begin just shortly. And sure enough, some people got up and left. A couple of guys got up and left. The next night I was talking, and this guy was there was sitting there, and he said he muttered a few things, and all of a sudden he got up and went out of there, and he had a briefcase, and evidently he was recording. Bob had told me they're going to try to record you. And he had a briefcase, and he got up on his cell phone and charged out of the building. Well, I gave him 15 hours worth, and while I was at John's house, he said, Al, did you see the black SUV go by twice? I said, no, but he said, it's got dark windows. I said, yeah, I know. I didn't see it, but I said, I've seen it before. I said, I'm not afraid. The Lord told me not to worry. So I completed the 3-day deal, and I went back home, and there was a pastor that I spoke up in Manhattan. He had me at his church. I've been booted out of my own church on the 26th of January of 1986. I had spoken at that time in about 112 places, 30 states, and about 4 countries in 06. And I noticed that night it was exactly 19 years to the very day, January 26th of 2005, right? So it was exactly 19 years to the very day. I had spoken in 113 places, never once until 19 years later to the very day I was asked to speak in a church with a name on the door, a name on the church. All those places that I spoke, none of them were churches, none of them. And the black pastor's name was Leighton Smith from Jamaica. He invited me. It was a big church in the basement, in a big flat basement room, about 500 people there stuffed in the place. And believe me, I kept them that rapt attention. But what he told me was, he said, we used to be over there in another building, but when Hillary Clinton became senator, she got in the building, and she made the management kick us out. She wouldn't let us stay in that building when she became a senator for New York. So I got a phone call from my buddy John about 4 months later. He says, guess what happened to the bishop out here in Omaha where you were speaking in his church? I said, what happened? He said, well, he was driving down an interstate with his wife following him, and he had a little piano in the back. He was delivering this, I think, electronic piano to another little church. And his wife was following, and he looked back and she was missing. So he said, what happened here? So he went back looking for her. He swung around. He went back to see her, and there she was, stopped along the road. And behind her sat an SUV with 2 officers in it, black SUV. So he got out of the vehicle, walked up to his wife. What's wrong? He says, well, it won't run. Oh. So he opens the hood and looks at it, crank it. She cranked it, wouldn't start. He says, okay, let me go get some starting fluid. Now, most American men know what starting fluid is. They might not know exactly what it is, but they know what it does. It's ether. And you're not supposed to use it on glow plug diesel engines. You can use it on real pure diesel engines, but you can't use it on glow plug engines. And don't put too much in any engine. You can blow the head off of it if you don't do it right, especially on a diesel engine, a pure diesel engine. So he drove off and came back with some starting fluid. And when he came back, there was 4 vehicles there with 8 guys standing around. So he goes up under the hood, and he's squirting the stuff in there, and as long as he keeps squirting, the motor's running. As soon as he quits it, the motor stops. Well, the fuel pump was bad. All of a sudden, the guy walks up and says, hey, what are you doing? Oh, I'm using starting fluid, man, so I get my motor started. Well, there's no such thing as starting fluid. Oh, yeah, there is. Right here, look. See? Oh, I didn't know that. Wait a minute. The guy wasn't from America because he didn't know what starting fluid was. I mean, I talked to most women, and they know, yeah, there's stuff you can squirt in the motor. Some of them, some do. Most of them know about that. But this guy didn't know. So he said, well, where do you live? He said, I live on whatever number of street. I ain't going to say what street it was, okay? He said, well, what's your street number? He says, I'm not going to tell you my street number. In fact, you know, I'm tired of this. I'm going because I explained all this. I explained all this stuff at the meeting where this pastor sat. First night he came with his wife. The second night he invited. The third night he invited his whole church. They came also, including our guys, our own little group out there. And so he hauled the thing off. He towed the car off. That was at 11:30. At 1:30 at night, he's reading his Bible, and here's the bada 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 bada. Here comes the helicopter, and the light. The helicopter's bada 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 bada, and he puts the light in the window. The big light shines in the window, and he says, "Hey, what's this?" And then he heard some noise, and his garage door went halfway open, and sure enough, his garage door was fried. The central processing unit in his chip, in his what do you call it, the little chipboard, was burned up. They had used a electromagnetic pulse and burned up his garage door chip. Now, I'll get back to that in just a moment. I got friends up in Canada who've been active in this thing. One night up there in Edmonton, at 3 o'clock in the morning, they heard a bada, 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 and out come a guy on the roof, walking a guy around on the roof of his house. Now, it's intimidation, okay? It's all intimidation and scare tactics. Now, I'll tell you what else happened when I was up in Edmonton. He said, look, we go down to Tim Horton. Now, Tim Horton is a donut chain just like Dunkin' Donuts. So let's go down. We go down to Tim Horton, and every day, the 2 guys, every Monday at 1 o'clock, they'd meet at Tim Horton, and they would always discuss all this stuff. Next thing you know, there's a Russian guy shows up with his newspaper. He's listening to everything. And this goes on, you know. One day, they didn't go to the restaurant for some reason. It was providential. The Lord saved their lives. A big white van comes swinging around the parking lot, crossed the parking lot, and crashed into the window of the donut shop. two guys were sitting at the table in there, but they weren't the right guys. My two buddies weren't